Greetings, programs! Welcome to Rationality from AI to Zombies. Chapter 29, Hindsight, Devalues Science. This essay is closely based on an excerpt from Myers' Exploring Social Psychology. The excerpt is worth reading in its entirety. Colin Murphy, editor of The Atlantic, said that the social sciences turn up, quote, no ideas or conclusions that can't be found in any encyclopedia of quotation. Day after day, social scientists go out into the world. Day after day, they discover that people's behaviour is pretty much what you'd expect. Unquote. Of course, the expectation is all hindsight. Hindsight bias. Subjects who know the actual answer to a question assign much higher probabilities they would have guessed for that answer compared to subjects who must guess without knowing the answer. The historian Arthur Schlesinger, Jr., dismissed scientific studies of World War II soldiers' experiences as ponderous demonstrations of common sense. For example, 1. Better educated soldiers suffered more adjustment problems than less educated soldiers. Intellectuals were therefore less prepared for battle stresses than street-smart people. 2. Southern soldiers coped better with the hot South Sea climate than northern soldiers. Therefore, Southerners are more accustomed to hot weather. White privates were more eager to be promoted to non-commissioned officers than black privates. Years of oppression take a toll on achievement motivation. Southern blacks preferred Southern to Northern white officers. Therefore, Southern officers were more experienced and skilled in interacting with blacks. And 5. As long as the fighting continued, soldiers were more eager to return home than after the war ended. Therefore, during the fighting, soldiers knew they were in mortal danger. How many of these findings do you think you could have predicted in advance? 3 out of 5? 4 out of 5? Are there any cases where you would have predicted the opposite, where your model takes a hit? Take a moment to think before continuing. In this demonstration, from Paul Lazarsfeld by way of Myers, all of the findings above are the opposite of what was actually found. How many times did you think your model took a hit? How many times did you admit that you would have been wrong? That's how good your model really was. The measure of your strength as a rationalist is your ability to be more confused by fiction than by reality. Unless, of course, I reverse the results again. What do you think? Do your thought processes at this point, where you really don't know the answer, feel different from the thought processes you use to rationalize either side of the known answer? Daphne Baradz exposed college students to pairs of supposed findings, one true, such as, in prosperous times, people spend a larger proportion of their income than during a recession, and one of the truth's opposite. In both sides of the pair, students rated the supposed finding as what they would have predicted. Perfect standard hindsight bias. Which leads people to think they have no need for science because they could have predicted just that. Just as you would expect, right? Hindsight will lead us to systematically undervalue the surprisingness of scientific findings, especially the discoveries that we understand. The ones that seem real to us, the ones we can retrofit into our models of the world. If you understand neurology or physics and read news in that topic, then you probably underestimate the surprisingness of findings in those fields too. This unfairly devalues the contribution of researchers, and worse, will prevent you from noticing when you're seeing evidence that doesn't fit what you really would have expected. We need to make a conscious effort to be shocked enough. Here ends chapter 29. Now for my thoughts. So, I don't know about you, but I really did feel a difference between the patterns of my thinking when I was confused and didn't know which way was up, as regards to the 5 examples, versus reading the examples and then retrofitting them into my head. I must admit there were a couple of those options that I was surprised at, but then I don't know anything in great detail at any rate, about the US and white-black relations and stuff, other than the fact that the US has a bit of a problem with racism. I'm not a US citizen, nor am I black, so this is a bit outside my experience. But yes, I could still feel the difference. I could feel myself almost explaining it to myself on the first pass. Being surprised to discover, because I am reading this for the first time, this is not the part of the book I've already read, surprised to discover it was in reverse, which made a certain amount of sense because I thought at least 2 of those questions were a bit back to front. And then, now, not knowing which way things are, whether it's the truth or falsehood or the truth again, thinking about it certainly does feel quite different. Because I'm not just accepting it on face value and then just adapting my mental model to fit. For me, I was surprised to discover that better educated soldiers suffered more. I would not have expected that, though I would have difficulty explaining why. The southern blacks preferring southern to northern white officers as leaders also caught me by surprise. I would have expected more ingrained racism there. And the thing about the war ending, when soldiers were more eager to go home when the fighting was still happening, I would have been surprised, because patriotism is a real thing, and so are the bonds of friendship and brotherhood. I would be surprised for a soldier to be more eager to leave the fight and go home than to finish the fight and then go home victorious, as it were. But hey, I still don't know which of these is true or false, which way up they are. But yes, hindsight bias is a real thing. Once you know the real answer, it seems obvious, far more obvious than it truly is. And this is something I encounter regularly, though perhaps not in the way you're expecting. Yes, I am a horribly nerdy person, so I do lots of role-playing. Yes, Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. Now, one of the things you have to watch out for as a games master, as a person running the game, is when you know what's happening behind the scenes, when you know what the secret answers to all the secret puzzles are, it all seems so obvious because you can backtrack how you get to the finished product, how you get to the conclusion, and it seems so obvious. And thus, you can get frustrated when your players, who are working through the puzzle without knowing the answer, suddenly can't understand something so simple and obvious. Oh, it's so frustrating. What you have to understand is you are suffering from hindsight bias, and they are not. And so this is something I run into very, very constantly, where knowing the answer makes it seem vastly more obvious than it really is, and other people who are working through the same process, who might be as smart as you, or even smarter, are having a hard time, because they can't see the quote-unquote obvious, because they don't know the answer. It's really quite different when you're on the ground floor looking up, from being on the top floor looking down. And it's important to know that, so that you don't make assumptions about other people just being stupid. Anyway, that's all for chapter 29. Tune in next time when, fingers crossed, I will have something for you on the ethics of mind control. Bye for now.